Hello and welcome back to the Roundup by News of the Week, the show where I, Jake Whitwell, summarise and explain the news, helping you to stay informed. This week we'll cover news from politics and the assisted dying bill to the Ukraine war and to the conclusion of an investigation into the fire at Heathrow Airport. So relax, get some snacks and let me have a go at keeping you informed and entertained. In news on policy changes, The Guardian noted the assisted dying bill has been thrown into doubt after it's been delayed to at least 2029. I told you we'll cover the assisted dying bill. First thing on the item. The timeline for the implementation of the assisted dying bill has been stretched to 4 years from its previous 2, meaning the earliest it can become operational is in 2029. This would coincide with when the next general election will take place. And that could risk the chances of it getting through due to it being an incredibly divisive bill and the prospect of MPs maybe not wanting to vote on it due to such division, which could risk their re-election. A spokesperson for the back of the bill, Kim Leadbeater, said she hopes the bill will still be delivered quicker than 2029, but that it could be abandoned altogether. A Liberal Democrat MP who sits on the committee which scrutinises the legislation shared those concerns around the bill being abandoned. The Mirror detailed the Hillsborough Law is in chaos as the PM cancelled a summit with families affected by the disaster. The PM was due to meet families this week over the promised bill after fears it had been watered down. Prior to this, the bill was in doubt anyway after it was watered down to make the Code of Candour, the thing that would be supposed to stop such an event happening again, as a voluntary action. A source within Labour said that the move had caused division and it caused fury within the party, as no one had listened to the families until the last minute. Hillsborough Law Now, the group representing families, has said that they will work with the government to make the bill the best it can be. The Telegraph reported Rainiers Workers' Rights Bill is set to be watered down as well. Backlash from businesses, as we've covered on the Roundup, has led ministers to consider changes to the bill around the zero-hour contracts, which could lead to a possible exemption for seasonal workers. The same sort of exemption could be there for agency staff as well, although this is like the exemption for seasonal workers still being discussed. In news on foreign policy, Sky News detailed Number 10 has insisted it is confident in sharing intelligence with the USA, despite the group chat leaks we've all seen this week. Luke Pollard, the Armed Forces Minister, spoke in Parliament this week saying no UK personnel were involved in the leak or the operation against the Houthis, and so the UK's operational security remained intact. However, he did add there would be consequences should any officials not follow the rules over operational security, and the leader of the Lib Dems, Sir Ed Davey, said the USA cannot be trusted with their own intelligence, let alone British intelligence, and that the continued sharing could pose a risk to British lives. The Mirror noted Starmer has held a major press conference after he met with nations and accused Putin of hollow promises over the Ukrainian ceasefire. Starmer has continued his meetings with 30 other leaders in his coalition of the willing, which in Paris, which is designed to support Ukraine. He said nations must come together to support Ukraine and that the USA and back USA efforts to achieve a ceasefire. He said Putin has shown himself not to be a serious player in the negotiations after making hollow promises over not honouring the naval ceasefire and continuing to attack Ukraine. BBC News detailed sensitive army papers have been found scattered in the street. Papers with information like soldiers' ranks, shift patterns, and information over accessing of weapons and intruder alarm systems have been found in a bin bag. An investigation is taking place. Downing Street said that it could not comment on any specifics while the investigation was taking place, but that the appropriate action will be taken. LBC reported Britain and France are planning to send a reassurance force to Ukraine after peace talks. The PM said the two countries will send military chiefs to Kiev in order to assess how best to protect Ukraine in the future. He said the coalition of the willing has asked him and the French leader to lead the coordinated efforts, and Starmer has also acknowledged putting troops on the ground would need parliamentary approval as well as the support of the Americans. Trump and his team do not seem as enthusiastic about the plan, but we will see what happens from here. BBC News noted the UK is prepared to retaliate against US tariffs, according to sources from Number 10. Negotiations are currently taking place over the UK exemption from Trump's 25% tariffs on car imports. This is due to there are hopes an agreement can be reached due to the UK's relatively equal trading relationship with the USA. The Prime Minister said the UK would not be jumping into a trade war with the country, and that the current method is pragmatic and clear-eyed conversation. The route for retaliatory tariffs is unclear, though, and could take the nuclear path of putting tariffs on things like financial services, or they could target specific goods like other countries have, like Harley-Davidson motorcycles. However, in any case, negotiations are expected to go ahead until at least after Wednesday, when the tariffs should come into place. In news on other politics, though, The Guardian reported Reform UK will go to war with the teaching unions, according to Nigel Farage. Farage accused the teaching unions of poisoning young people against everything the country's ever stood for. 8 protesters have heckled Farage, who he dismissed as boring and as saddos. Mispronounced his name, I think it's Kebede. The General Secretary of the NEU called Farage's comments unhinged and as though they were straight out of Donald Trump's playbook. The group who the protests belong to, Stand Up to Racism, said the group challenged Farage due to him spreading division at a time when unity was required. LBC detailed an independent report has found credible evidence that Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe contributed to a toxic culture within the party. After complaints from 2 women over bullying led to a report which found there was veracity in their claims, it was found that Lowe also failed to address the allegations seriously, and that he did not address the toxic conduct of males in his office. BBC News noted a minister has said it is not appropriate to take free tickets. Housing Minister Matthew Pennycock said he does not personally find it appropriate to accept free tickets. This comes after Reeves defended taking tickets for a Sabrina Carpenter concert show on security grounds, and the PM backed his chancellor, saying everything has been done legally, even though the rules on accepting gifts have been tightened. Sky News reported the Home Office has cancelled a hotel company's contract to house asylum seekers. A review into the performance and behaviour of Belvedere hotels raised safety concerns over their treatment of migrants, even though the specifics of the review were not disclosed. The £2 billion a year deal will be stopped at its earliest opportunity in September, according to the government. The Home Office said it will not hesitate to take further action if necessary, and the government reaffirmed its position of trying to end the use of asylum hotels as it has promised. The Independent reported a Labour MP paused for an awkwardly long silence when asked if the government has been a disappointment. In an appearance just hours after Rachel Reeves' spring statement, Clive Lewis, the MP for Norwich South, paused for 5 seconds over the question on whether the government was disappointing. BBC News detailed the PM spokesperson has quit Downing Street after 9 months in the job. Matthew Doyle, a Labour veteran who worked for Tony Blair, was brought in as the PM's assistant 4 years ago when the party was in opposition. He remarked it is time to pass the baton on, and that he was incredibly proud of the part he played in returning the Labour Party to government. The Telegraph reported Nigel Farage has pledged a ban on civil servants working from home. Farage placed a ban on civil servants working from home as he proposed a British version of America's Doge to cut down public waste. He also said the public sector spending has grown out of proportion, and Richard Tice said, and at the same keynote speech, Richard Tice promised to make Britain great again, and said the party was on the side of the working people due to measures like this. In global news, BBC News noted Rwanda is planning to attack Burundi, according to the country's president. The country's president has told BBC News it received credible evidence that Rwanda will attack its country. He also said it will do what it's doing now in Congo. The UN has evidence of it arming and backing the M23 rebel group, which has seized parts of the country. Rwanda, however, called the comment surprising and noted that the 2 countries were engaging and cooperating over their shared border, which has been closed for more than a year. Reuters detailed Norway has said the US is still committed to European defence. The defence minister there said he believes the US is still committed to Europe's defence despite recent speculation and action otherwise. He said that the continent will have to take a bigger share of the costs in order to defend itself than it had before. Sky News noted the US appears to be significantly ramping up its military presence in the Middle East. At least 5 B-2 stealth bombers have been deployed to a British base in the region, which is used by the US with more en route. 7 aircraft have also been tracked in this, and this suggests that the staff and as well as equipment and fuel are being moved. Refueling aircraft have also been deployed to strategic locations in the area. USS Harry S. Truman, the aircraft carrier, has also seen its deployment extended by a month, and a second deployment is also headed to the region. But both ships are supported by destroyers as well. This comes over renewed speculation over the strikes to the Houthis, as well as pressure on Iran from the USA. The Guardian noted the EU has told citizens to stockpile 72 hours of supplies in case of a disaster. This is part of EU-led strategy to increase readiness for catastrophic events like floods, pandemics, and military attacks. The plan has also seen pamphlets distributed and an app developed advising people what to do if such events take place. The stockpiling strategy could be expanded to schools to raise awareness, and things being advised to be stockpiled are things like food, water, medicine, ID, and cash. Sky News covered an earthquake which hit Myanmar this week. Over 1,600 people have died so far as of Sunday morning, and that number is expected to rise further. 2,400 have been injured as the 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck the country earlier this week. The earthquake also affected Thailand, with 8 people dying and 79 being injured there. Rescuers have been hampered by a lack of access and the closure of an airport in the region. However, international aid has been dispatched to the region, with China sending over $13 million worth of, and Russia, India and Singapore also sending aid as well. Reuters noted Russia has accused Ukraine of virtually destroying a key gas station. After agreements were initially made over the pausing of strikes on each other's energy infrastructure, Russia has accused Ukraine of attacking a key gas metering station in Saduza. I think that's how it's pronounced. Ukraine said that it was Russia who attacked the transmission station and that the Russians do not control its usage. Russia claimed this happened last week as well. Reuters was only able to verify its location, and like last week, it couldn't verify the validity of either country's claims. News on trends. The Independent detailed charities have reported a rise in calls for help since the announcement of welfare cuts. Charities like Mind and Scope have seen calls double to 182 and 344 calls respectively, while online services have also had more use. Citizens Advice also saw a spike in users, where its advice website on PIPs rose 44%. Where activity on its advice website on PIPs rose 44% to 80,000 users last week. The overriding message from charities is that callers do not know how they'll cope, and that people are scared, some are distressed, and some are feeling invalidated. Ultimately, they urge the government to reconsider their policy. Sky News noted JD Vance is even less popular in Britain than Donald Trump is, according to new polls. An Ipsos poll found that only 14% of the British public have a favourable view of JD Vance, compared with 21% for Trump. Both the PM, Keir Starmer, and Nigel Farage sit at 29% respectively. Ipsos questioned 1,132 adults across Britain in preparation for this survey. Reuters reported a poll has showed the EU's approval rating has hit a record high among citizens. Eurobarometer conducted surveys with over 26,354 citizens in person in all 27 EU countries. 74% of citizens felt that the countries benefited from the EU, which is the highest recorded answer since the question was originally asked in 1980. The Independent noted the Health Minister has told MPs the uptake of breast cancer screenings is shockingly low. The Health Minister responded to questions from James Cleverly, the MP for Braintree, over what the government was doing to encourage more women to get screenings. She said that boosting the screening uptake was a key part of the government's plan on cancer and that AI would be used to help support a faster response time. In non-political news, The Times reported the Met Police have said there was no evidence of criminality in the Heathrow airport fire. A counter-terrorism unit led the investigation prior to this, and they found there was no evidence to justify was suspicious, and so they were no longer treating it as such. The Guardian reported British Steel plans to close its Scunthorpe blast furnace with 2,700 jobs at risk. The closures coming after British Steel, which is owned by a Chinese company, said it started consultations with the workforce and unions over redundancies in relation to the closure. The move will affect between 2,000 and 2,700 workers of the 3,500 strong workforce and will bring an end to production after 160 years of business. This would mean the UK would lose its steel-making capabilities, which are used in rail, heavy industry, light sections, transport, infrastructure and construction. This means that UK customers would also be dependent on international suppliers. This comes to the Scunthorpe site is reportedly running losses of £700,000 a day and will face additional pressures from the 25% tariffs due to come into play next week. I know this is non-political news, but I couldn't resist including some. The Energy Minister has said that the preferred course of action would be for British Steel and the government to get back round the table over investment talks which have so far been rejected. Union bosses said that the impetus is now on the government to rescue the steelwork operation as the closure would affect the UK's national security. The Times detailed King Charles has been seen for the first time since withdrawing from engagements over side effects of cancer treatment. He was sighted leaving Clarence House, waving to well-wishers on Friday. This is after the King cancelled engagement this week due to him suffering with the side effects of his treatment. A spokesperson for the palace said the King hopes his engagements can be rescheduled. Anyway, that concludes the news I got for this week. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe. If there's anything that you think I can improve on, please let me know and I'll look at including it next week. Bye. Have a good week.